So my name is Yolanda Rodriguez Delgado. I was born in Puerto Rico. I grew up in a town called Maunabo. It's a very beautiful rural town in the island. It's a mix of rural and the beach. We have the ocean right there as well. I moved out of that town when I was 15 to Humacao, and that's where we are right now. That's where my mom lives and my family, they are in Puerto Rico. I moved to New York in 1997. I had just finished my pre-medicine bachelor's in biology, and I wanted to come here for a year and learn English and take the MCATs, which are the tests that you take to go to medical school. And the plan was for me to go back to the island after I learned English and to take the test. But I really liked it here. I was 23 years old. It was the first time ever that I was away from home on my own. And New York was so awesome when you're in your 20s. And I loved it. I made many friends and decided to stay. And I changed careers. I became a teacher. So that's a little bit of my story in a nutshell. I love the Bronx. I always found myself here very comfortable. In the island, even though I was born there, I never felt like I fit in. And I know this is weird, but I do not look like a typical Puerto Rican woman. They're short, they may have big hips. They may not necessarily be tall like me. I was really tall my entire childhood. So I always felt very awkward. Also, women tend to dress up all the time and have high heels and full makeup to just be. And I was never that way. I was more simple in my more humble in the way I walked through the island. So I always found myself a little not fitting in. But New York and the Bronx, people looked like me. People were comfortable like me. From other tall people. I know it's funny, but it was just it felt right, and it felt comfortable. I started enjoying the Bronx so much more because of that. I felt like there were people like me, and they understood my experience of not fitting in. Here as well, because I grew up in the island, my relationship with Puerto Rico, it was a little different than the relationship New Yorkers will have with Puerto Rico. I grew up there. I didn't listen to salsa or like bomba, but those things here, when you're here, they emphasize, you want to attach to those things more because they're your culture. So I couldn't understand that as well as I couldn't relate to that. I never learned how to dance salsa, for example, but every Puerto Rican in New York knows how to dance salsa. So those things were also interesting to me when I moved there. There was a lot of identities that I needed to negotiate in that time as well. So moving to New York gave me a more international view of what diversity is in terms of religion and race and gender and all the, not only identifying yourself as one thing, but all the places where you are diverse because you intersect with your identities in New York. And so being Muslim and being a gay or queer and maybe coming from a Latino background, it's just all these identities in New York intersect. So diversity to me is just New York, is the Bronx, is like what people are here, how all these things intersect. I appreciate diversity. I just enjoy having friends that are all kinds of things and they enrich my life. I think I had a very narrow view of life when I was in the island. The religion there really makes you think very narrowly about things. And just meeting people here that identify with those diversities that back then they were told to me that's wrong. And then meeting them and seeing how human and how beautiful people they are, to me, that's just what New York does, what the Bronx does to you. you just have to change your points of views. You have to.
And what difficulties, if you had or did you encounter for being a woman?
So being a woman in New York has been interesting. I, at the very beginning, was a woman that didn't speak English and had a very thick accent, which I still have. But when I first, 1997, when I first started learning English, it was hard for people to understand sometimes what I would say. And I was dismissed many times as somebody that was dumb and not intelligent, or just not given the voices, or being interrupted all the time, or just that kind of I guess mansplaining situation, and was very frustrating. But I feel that because I grew up in a household where women were very strong, I also carry that to my identity here, and I tend to always want to make my own table wherever I go. So I was never afraid of speaking up. That got me in trouble, I guess, many times. But my first regular job here in New York as a teacher was in a school near Mochila Parkway. I'm not going to say exactly which school, but one of the reasons why I left that school is because the principal, which was a very strong male, he treated women in a way that was very kind of like sexualized them if you look a certain way. For the woman that didn't look that way, he treated us really badly. And I remember one time I was not the woman, I didn't look that way that he liked. I remember one time in the hallway, I was walking out of my class and he started yelling at me because I guess I wasn't walking fast enough. And he yelled at me in front of like hundreds of students and parents in the hallway walking for dismissal. And I thought it was that type of thing that a man would do to a woman because he feels like he can do that and he's in a position of power. But I was so angry that I yelled at him back right there. And I said, not even my father have ever yelled at me the way you're yelling at me right now. How disrespectful. You will find my resignation letter on your desk the next day. And I quit my job without having another job, which I don't recommend anybody do that. But I did. And because those are the things that I couldn't stay quiet to those injustice moments of how men treated women in the workplace in my experience. And most recently as well, I just experienced similar things about being kind of like a woman or Latina. And we were in a meeting and I just said something in the meeting, and then the next person, which a white male, came in and kind of completely dismissed what I said. Oh, well, yeah, I don't agree with Yolanda. What she said is just, I don't know. She's just it's too much what she's saying. And that was really upsetting. So just trying to fight against that. And I try to speak up as much as I can. And I don't stay quiet when I feel that an injustice is being done.
And last question, what advice would you give to other women, and especially to the new generations coming?
I think that for years we stayed quiet and we just let it be because we were maybe afraid that there were going to be consequences. But I think it's important that as a woman at work and everywhere you are, you find other women to relate to. I have been blessed with every part of my career. I've been surrounded by powerful leaders that were women. And I always hold on to that. And I still have relationships with many of them, even though decades have passed, because those relationships were the ones that gave me the strength to speak up when I needed to, when I felt that I was not being treated equally. I think that's very important. And just always speak up, don't stay silent. Even if you're afraid, say something. It's important to call out this type of injustices when they happen. Don't wait a week, just when they happen, speak up.